This is WCM's Park Update, a weekly show covering the outdoor hospitality industry, hosted by Ben Quiggle and Mike Gast. During each episode, you'll hear from special guests and campground experts on topics that will help your park flourish. WCM's Park Update is a production of Woodall's Campground Magazine.
Hi, I'm Ben Quiggle, editor of Woodall's Campground Magazine, and this is another edition of WCM's Park Update. And of course, my esteemed colleague Mike Gast is here, founder of the Emiola Group. Oh, God. Whatever.
You got it.
Yeah, I got it. There you go. I'm Hawaiian. Okay. Great to have him here with us from Omaha, Nebraska. And our guest today is Adam Lendi, the founder of Beyonder Camp. And, I mean, you guys, I think the last time, well, no, I think I saw you. Were you guys at the Campground Owners Expo?
Yeah, we were. We saw you in Branson. That was the last time.
Okay. All right. And then I remember you guys at the Ojai convention. You guys had quite a team there. I think like
the sea of Orange. Yeah.
Yeah, Sea of Orange. So it was great seeing you guys. And obviously Beyonder Camp has grown so much. We've had you on the show before, but I guess just give us an update as to where you guys are at the moment, I guess.
Lots changed over the past few years. I don't remember where we were in our campground count the last time I was on, but at this point, Beyonder Camp has got 7 campgrounds we manage, 6 of those of which we own through Beyonder Holdings. And then of course we've rebranded. I don't remember if the last time I was on we were still Happy Camper Capital on one side versus Beyonder on the other. That was something we did last year just for brand unity. But yeah, a heck of a lot's changed. We really took a huge step back on our growth in 2023, just given where interest rates were. We were not jumping on a bunch of opportunities then and really focused on our operations. Took a deep dive into what we could do just to make sure we were capturing the most market share. And we're starting to gear back up again to look at potentially more acquisitions in 2024. But that said, we've also dove into a new venture now, which is our podcast, our Campground Catalyst podcast, which you guys were gracious enough to run a piece on. So, that's just kind of an overall highlight of some of the stuff that we're working on from the top level right now.
Yeah, and of course, the most important thing is last May, you guys unveiled Boomer the Raccoon. So that's the most important part of any brand is finding that mascot, I guess. So how'd you guys land on a raccoon, I guess?
So Boomer came about. This was part of our operations focus on what we're going to do to really live up to our mission, which is on the operations side to run family-friendly, amenity-rich campgrounds and really just hit it home with all age groups. We came to the decision we wanted to have a mascot. So we started, first off, we had one of our team members, his daughter, sketch up some ideas. And she played with different animals, and we did some internal voting on it. But we ultimately put it out to our campers. So we took out our main camper database, and we emailed all of them a survey. And we got consensus first on that we were going to go with a raccoon. And then we went into, internally, we designed what that was going to look like and actually worked with a costume designer who made the mascot for us. But then we had the name Boomer after that. So, we liked something that alliterated with Beyonder. But we ultimately put out a long list to our campers again, and they voted overwhelmingly on Boomer. So Boomer was born last year and has been gracing a lot of conventions. Actually didn't make it to Ojai, but has made it to some of the conventions since then. So, and has been a real hit at the campgrounds just with all the age groups.
Yeah. So Adam, you still got the Yogi Park in your collection, correct? So how does the bear and the raccoon get along?
Well, there's a branding conflict there. So that's the one property we don't own that we manage, and that one. So we do follow the Jellystone criteria on that one there. So we have not brought Boomer to that property. There's some conflicts and some red tape we got to cut through.
I think you'll have to slug it out.
We've made internal jokes on that, what that would look like.
So, I think you mentioned at the beginning here when you were talking about, how you guys have been growing, you kind of slowed down on the acquisitions or the expansions of the portfolio, I guess, due to some interest rates. Do you see that? Are you still looking for parks? Do you see that kind of easing here this year potentially to maybe even acquire more properties?
Yeah, we're always looking. We've never stopped looking. We just really we drilled down on our criteria last year, the things that we were looking at to buy, because we're using investor money to buy these. So we have to build into our model a certain amount of room just to pay those investors what they're expecting. And then when you back that out and you add in bank debt, a lot of properties we were looking at were really quickly not feasible for the prices that the owners wanted to sell them for. And, some of that is just market expectations. That's something that we've seen with property owners in any real estate asset, but certainly in campgrounds, they're not exclusive to it, where, the expectations lag with the market conditions are. So like a lot of the campground owners who sold in 2020 were selling at what they thought was a great price, but it ended up actually being a really good price for the seller. Well, fast forward a couple of years, it was, now we're looking at a lot of these guys want to sell for what 2022 campgrounds were selling for. So it did challenge us a little bit on some of that growth, finding properties that penciled out on paper and got where we wanted to be. We closed one property last year. That's our Wheeler Lake property in Alabama, just outside of Huntsville, which is truly the crown jewel of our portfolio, at least for me right now. That's my favorite one. And again, so we're continuing to look. We have our CARES assessment that we rolled out last year also. That's the tool we put out for campground owners to go through and get a management report so they can basically know where the metrics we look at, kind of like almost what Good Sam does, right? We put together ratings for them in different categories, but based on more the owners and management side. And that's kind of our initial consult into the potential buying conversation. So we're still getting those in and we're still screening them as they come up, but being a lot more selective about what we move forward with.
And so I think you've got a really good swath through the Midwest. Do you have geographic limitations in your searches?
Well, I like to say that we're nationwide. We're looking to rival some other brands out there as we grow. So ultimately, we'll target being in at least all of the lower 48, if not branching out from there. But for the time being, we're really putting our focus in. The Midwest was great for us to start. It was a good value area for us. We started moving to the South a little bit. We do like the Sun Belt, so we're targeting properties. We'd still look at things in the Midwest. We're looking Sun Belt, lower South Atlantic coast, all the way into the Southwest. We're in Colorado and we still don't have a park in our portfolio here in our backyard. So that's still, target for us. So a lot of different markets we're looking in. But yeah, those are some of the main ones we're focusing on.
Yeah. And you guys also do third-party management too, I guess. Describe a little bit. Has that been growing, I guess? Do you see a lot of demand on that end?
It's been a challenging area. Again, we've got the one property we're managing right now. It's a quiver. It's an arrow in our quiver, so to speak. That we offer that to different campground owners. We haven't had a lot of people take us up on it, or we just haven't been able to come to terms with everybody because it is a tough, ask of a seller. Hey, we're a group that you don't really know, and we're asking to take over your business, which ultimately you're still going to be responsible for. At the end of the day, so you have to trust that person's going to deliver on what they say they're going to do. It's something that maybe it didn't take on as quick as I thought it would, and what inspired us to really kick it off was going to OHCE a couple of years ago. And we had, after the Prospective Owners Workshop, a lot of owners and, new owners and developers that were coming to us and saying, we're looking for management, so we had a lot of chatter. It hasn't necessarily materialized into a lot of opportunities, or they're just ones that maybe we don't want to move on, or we just can't come to the table on the right terms.
Yeah. I mean, I'm amazed at how many companies I've seen kind of jump into that, even some companies that don't really have a lot of outdoor hospitality experience that are kind of feeling it out, I guess. That's been kind of surprising for me to watch over the last couple of years, I guess. It'll be interesting to see, I guess, what the future holds on those. So,
and and not to speak bad about anybody who's getting into the space, but there's not a lot of experience in property management that translates to running a campground. I don't have to tell any of your audience who's listening to this that these are complex properties to run, and it's a lot more than running an apartment building or anything else you've run in the past. So it's certainly something where you need somebody who's got the relevant experience.
I thought it was just like rental storage. That's what I hear.
Man, if I could run a campground with the staffing you need to run self-storage, I'd own a lot more. I think last year too, we interviewed you guys for a story we did on marinas, and that's kind of an interesting aspect of the campground market that more people are starting to look at. You guys have at least one property with a marina, correct? And how does it
how's running a campground and a marina at the same time? How does that work? I guess. So
You
pretty
know,
comparable.
Yeah, so we've got one property with a marina. That's the one on Truman Lake in Missouri. And then we have our property in Alabama I was just referring to. We're going to be building a marina there in phase 2 of that one's expansion. So we're putting some docks in now. We're comfortable with it at this point. Honestly, when we got into the first marina, it was something where we looked at the business. It made sense. We right, wrong, or indifferent, we jumped into it without any relevant marina experience. We've learned as we've gone. Fortunately, the transition into operating a marina wasn't too much different from running an RV property. They rent in a very similar fashion. You have some transient slips. You have some that are seasonal and long-term. We can manage them through the same software. Just some different cost centers that you have in maintaining docks versus maintaining RV sites. They can be more expensive in some ways. When you get hit by a windstorm, they can do hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of damage, whereas your RV sites, you might lose some trees, but otherwise the revenue possibilities are really good on them. They're a good complement to a campsite if you're on the right body of water. And in our case, the property in Missouri, a lot of the people who rent slips are also renting RV sites from us. So they have the slip for their boat and the site for their camper.
Do people also just rent our like cabins and stuff and then have a boat at the marina? I guess, is that something you see too, or do they usually have an RV?
We have a rental boat fleet for those who don't have boats who want to come out and actually get the full experience on their own. They can take a tri-tune out for the day and rent one of our accommodations to stay in. They can bring their own boat if they've got one elsewhere and they want to use a transient slip for the time that they're there. And then they can stay in, again, our motel, one of our cabins, as you mentioned, or an RV site. So there are a lot of different ways you can mix and match it.
Yeah.
So what's the condition of some of these campgrounds that you're buying into, Adam? Are they fixer-uppers or are they really turnkey?
It really depends, Mike. We look at there's generally two opportunities, when you're looking to make an investment in one of these properties. One is a mismanaged business, which if you can find one that's truly mismanaged, that's obviously, I think, everybody's dream. You've got one that's well maintained and all you got to go in is flip some switches in the operations to make it profitable. More often the case, and then of course the other side is the fixer-upper, right? Which you have to put a big question mark as to how much that's going to cost. And, the due diligence is extensive on that, on going in, and so much of our infrastructure is underground. It makes it really hard to understand really what you're going to spend. So, but we usually end up with some blend between the two when we're looking at these properties. Is maybe some level of mismanagement, and then some level of deferred maintenance. We don't like anything that's totally deferred. That's who knows what you're going to have going on underground. But we definitely like to find the ones that strike the right balance, where we can put a little bit of money into it, improve some things, and put our systems in place.
So take us through the buying process a little bit. How long does it take? Where do you start? Do you send a team into someplace you're interested in?
We've got, I'd say, I think we're a little different in how we do our lead generation. We are more direct to seller. So we actually seek out the owners on our own as opposed to working through listed properties elsewhere. I prefer to go in without competition, let's just say. And, we'll start building the relationship. And I'll tell you, it's paid dividends for us. One of the properties we bought last year was a lead we'd been nurturing for almost 2 years from when we first spoke to the gentleman who owned it. And then when he had a health need that caused him to sell it, that's when we came to the table and made a deal. Once we get to a point where we're negotiating a contract, depending on attorneys and, getting the agreement on the contract put together, that can be a couple weeks to 30 days in some cases. And usually once we have a contract in place, we look to be closed within 90 to 120 days. The biggest challenges for us are getting all the documents we need from sellers. Not everybody's a good record keeper, and getting the paperwork together that we need to underwrite it properly can oftentimes be one of the bigger delays. And then financing is the other one. Just getting the bank and getting them to put their stamp on it usually takes every bit of about 60 to 75 days.
Yeah. And are you still finding that there's quite a few property owners that are still wanting to sell at the moment, I guess, when you approach them?
Yeah, we've still got a great pipeline of people who are ready to do it. Whether they've been planning it or, like I said, the one last year where they have a life condition that changes them. And, like I said, I was just training a new guy today who's making calls to campgrounds for us and, building up that pipeline and keeping us in front of new opportunities. So they still exist. They still want to sell. Like I said, before, it really depends on their level of motivation and how much they want to sell or what their expectations are, because that has unfortunately been, like I mentioned earlier, has caused a lot of these not to come to the table. It's just we can't make it pencil to a way that it makes sense.
Yeah. Well, we will take a minute to recognize our sponsor Spot tonight, and then we will be right back with Adam.
Supercharge your campground bookings with Spot Tonight, the #1 commission-free OTA for RV parks and campgrounds. Through integrations with top property management systems, Spot Tonight displays real-time outdoor accommodation inventory with a marketplace where campers can search for and instantly book campsites. Best of all, it's 100% free for operators. Visit partners.spottonight.com to get listed and unlock access to over 60 million campers.
Hi, welcome back to WCM's Park Update, sponsored by Spot tonight, and we are talking with Adam Lendi, the founder of Beyonder Camp, about all the growth they've seen, some of the changes they've been through, some of the things they're focused on, and I know one of the more recent things that you guys sent our way was information about this Campground Catalyst that you guys are doing, which is kind of a neat, I guess, like community you guys are trying to develop. I guess kind of give us a rundown of what this Campground Catalyst is and why it's something you guys decided you wanted to do.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. So Campground Catalyst is something that it's really come from the fact that we're a training-based company. We're really big on our own internal training and team development. We actually developed our own course on how to buy campgrounds a couple years ago. That was another piece you guys rolled out for us, that our RV Destination Mastery course. That was just to help our acquisitions team initially get trained up, so I wouldn't have to keep going through the same training with them. And of course, it turned into a product. And I've always I came from a coaching background before I got into outdoor hospitality. I love helping people learn and develop. And I saw a need because there was not a lot of resource in our industry for people who want to get in. When we got in ourselves, just for an example, there were really no good training resources to tell you how to underwrite and buy a campground. There was one, and it was a modified how to buy a mobile home course. And that's what we used to buy our first property, and we found a lot of holes in it. Fortunately, nothing that was too detrimental, but it definitely has limitations. We've developed a lot of our own systems, and I wanted to look at how we could the next iteration of our company, how we can give back to a broader community and be a resource. When I got into real estate, there's a great website, Bigger Pockets, that a lot of people might know who follow this, that teaches you about different aspects of buying real estate, investing in real estate. And it's how I learned a lot of the things and strategies I employed early on. So what we're aiming to do is provide that level of resource for outdoor hospitality specifically. So whether somebody's looking to buy their first campground, they're looking to buy another campground, if it's an investor who wants to understand the industry to get into it, or a campground owner who wants to understand how to manage better, that's what we're focusing on, is delivering that value. So this is a hybrid podcast and community, currently online through our Patreon channel, but we're going to be developing that into something bigger as it grows, where we're going to be building out some really robust forums and working toward having a mastermind event with campground owners. So we're a couple weeks past our release. We've got 5 episodes released thus far in the podcast, and a lot more in the tank that are ready to go, and a lot more topics coming. So, it's something that is going to turn. It's really a user-driven or listener-driven show. We started off with an initial set of topics we're talking about, but as we get requests in for whatever's in demand, whatever people are looking to know now, we're going to be responding with episodes and, of course, future training topics.
Yeah. And I mean, some of the topics I think, you guys have talked about, like buying versus building, maximizing your ancillary revenue stream, some really important topics, leveraging depreciation and tax benefits. I guess, what's been the reaction so far? Have people been signing up for this thing? I guess what's the feedback you've gotten?
Yeah, we're getting a lot of attention. The social media channels for it have really lit up with a lot of people following, getting a lot of downloads on the podcast. Our most popular episode thus far has been the one on depreciation. And, that's one of those things, again, that you get a lot of campground owners who just, they're really good at running their campground, but they don't necessarily have a lot of the experience in tax strategies and unless they have a good professional in their corner. And it's amazing how many people didn't even realize accelerating their depreciation was an option on these properties.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, every time I go to conferences, the ancillary revenue stream thing, that's always a good topic too whenever I go to conferences. I guess, is that something you've discussed with your own teams too, as to how you can maximize that at each of your locations?
Ben, that's part of what drew us into this industry. We were in other real estate facets, but I looked at that as your almost uncapped potential in a campground, is that you can always find new products, services, events that you can host on your campground to ramp up that revenue. And, I always joke about it that, I still have not found our limit yet. Every time we feel that we've got it maxed out, we find something else that we can offer and sell to enhance the experience and enhance our revenue.
Yeah.
Adam, we mentioned earlier that you do manage that leisure system park, that Yogi Park in Oklahoma, and are you open to other opportunities like that with a current franchise company, whether it be a KOA or a Yogi? Is that something you pursue?
Yeah, we are open to managing under other brands as well too. We understand that it might be challenging for some owners to find that, because obviously a management fee on top of a franchise fee could really cut into things. But if somebody's in the right position where they need help managing, that's something we can do. But we're also open to consulting as well too. So if there's somebody who maybe just needs some help getting around a corner or over a challenge, and maybe they don't want to necessarily totally commit to handing over the reins, we're willing to jump in and help on that front too. But yeah, we will certainly consider taking over even another branded campground. We just might not put our flag out.
I talk to a lot of campground owners that have a problem with staffing. Where are you finding these great professional managers?
Well, that's been a challenge for us as well too, but it's something that we're really kind of getting the formula put together on, and it's something that I have to say we have the advantage, given the portfolio size we have, to be able to put these resources into this. We just hired a new recruiter who's a staff recruiter. It's not an ancillary duty that one of us has running a campground to get in front of more talent. We rolled out a new work camper program that we've actually avoided the traditional work camper model in the past, just because of some of the liabilities that come with it, based on workman's comp and the like. We found legal workarounds for it to make that effective for us. So we've really ramped up a lot of our staffing with work campers. But as far as the managers that you specifically asked about, we've been talent scouting nationwide for that. We've actually been moving people who are top candidates from other markets as opposed to just shopping within a market. It certainly means we've had to pay a little bit more for our managers, but I'll tell you, the dividends on it are there. I mean, it's absolutely worth hiring the right person as opposed to the right now person.
I think it's interesting. We just published an article in WCM, I think a month or two ago, about the educational aspect and how colleges and universities are developing more of this into their hospitality programs. I guess, is that something you're targeting too, where you're looking at maybe colleges and universities and trying to reach kids coming out of those institutions?
We've got our feelers in a couple of hiring channels that are specifically targeted to college students, but we aren't actively recruiting from colleges necessarily. I would say as far as looking for managers, we're generally looking for people who have relevant experience or extensive business experience. For us, the manager is one of the most important roles. I mean, we treat them like a business owner, the way we incentivize them on the property. So we really need somebody who's got a strong business acumen. So I would almost look at that more than I would the paper hanging on their wall.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I don't know if I'd generally grab one of those kids and put them in a management role right off the bat, unless they had experience, but, developing them for down the road, I guess. But, yeah, that is definitely a key part of the business to have a good manager in place. I guess, what are you guys doing as far as, we talk a lot about EVs and stuff too. I guess, what are you guys doing as far to tackle that stuff coming down the road? Do you guys have EV chargers at your properties?
We have not implemented stationary EV chargers yet. We have a couple portables on our properties. But the biggest change we've done just for looking at EVs coming down the road is making the switch to wireless metering, making sure that we have wireless meters on all of our sites and that we're prepared for the day when somebody rolls in with a fully depleted electric pickup truck and a fifth wheel that's got 3 air conditioners on it and they're staying one night. So we're at least getting that configured. the biggest challenge we're dealing with on that front is just setting a new expectation with campers about how electric rates are billed. Traditionally, obviously, most of them being monthly and seasonal, and now working toward making that a nightly, weekly roll out. So it doesn't feel, and also avoiding it feeling like another add-on charge, another nickel and dime. We're looking at, possibly even making it where when we roll it out, a certain amount of electricity is included in your nightly rate. If you exceed it, you get billed for it.
So what's the investor mood out there like right now? I mean, you spoke before that you rely quite a bit on the investor money for these purchases. What are they thinking?
Well, in the investor side is interesting. A lot of the time, it's other real estate assets that benefit us. So a couple of years ago, multifamily was having some real challenges, and so a lot of those investors weren't looking to put their money in because the deals were so compressed. There weren't a lot of good opportunities. So we ended up getting a lot of investors who were traditionally in multifamily, which was a big educational curve getting them around to outdoor hospitality. The investors that usually target us are ones that have a slightly higher risk tolerance because this is not a long-term, tried and true asset with, a decade's history of investor returns. It's relatively boutique and a little bit, a little bit newer. So, there is a higher potential upside for the investors in what we offer on the returns there. But, we've still got strong investor interest. We've got more investor soft commits, we call them, the money that we could spend than we have opportunities to bring it to right now.
What are you excited about for the future? I guess when you look at Beyonder, when you look 5-10 years down the road, where do you guys hope to be?
So our 10-year goal is to have 100 owned properties. So, we'll be flying our flag on other properties that are owned by others that are, under our management, but it'll be to have 100 properties that we own. So that's what we're working toward. What I'm most excited about is really where we're headed with our operations. We were very growth focused for a long time. And as I mentioned last year, we kind of had a realization that we really needed to double down on that operations side because it wasn't as simple as it was in 2021, 2022, where it's have campground, it will be full. There was a little bit of a demand change we picked up on pretty quick. And, so we had to really focus on marketing efforts. We had to really focus on the guest experience and the things we're working on. And the team that I've got built right now, I've got some absolute A players on my bench who are running the operations side of things. And, I'm excited about this camping season coming up, really, just to watch the fruits of all our labors, this fall and winter as we roll out into spring and watch that propel us into the rest of 2024.
So do you hit, that 100 number with all company owned or managed, or, do you explore like a franchise model down the road, I guess?
Well, the franchise model is something we've discussed in the past. We haven't fully developed that idea yet. Honestly, even the management idea is something we really haven't, I would say, gone big with yet. I mean, what I mean by that is we put some collateral out. We always leave it as an option. We have not actively, truly pursued marketing efforts on that.
Oh, got me mid-drink. Okay.
I can stall if you want me to.
I thought you were going to talk for a couple seconds more. Okay. Well, I mean, it's all exciting. So, and I love seeing you guys at the conferences. I love the orange. I need to get me one of those for when I go hunting, because that's the color of orange we use for hunting up here. So, but
that's right. Well, next time I see you, I'll get you a Beyonder polo.
Okay. I love the orange. I love the raccoon mascot. I love what you guys are doing. I mean, the growth is great, and I think you guys are doing some really good stuff. So it'll be interesting to see you guys hit that 100 park mark in 10 years. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome. How can people get in touch with you, Adam, I guess, or Beyonder Camp if they are interested in either selling a park or just learning more, I guess?
Yeah, well, so I mentioned, of course, before our CARES assessment. That's really what we unrolled at the conferences last year. That's for campground owners who are looking for either selling their campground or putting it into management. That's the free report we provide. That's more or less the health report of the property. So that can be found at beyondercamp.com/go.
Okay.
If anybody who's interested in the podcast, Campground Catalyst, that's on all the podcast players, or if there's somebody who's looking to get into the campground space, really they need to be part of our community through Patreon, which can all be found through campgroundcatalyst.com or the podcast, or just in general with me. My email is my first name, Adam@beyondercamp.com.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, thank you, Adam, for coming on and talking more about Beyonder. And I look forward to just seeing you guys at conferences down the road.
Thank you for listening to WCM's Park Update, a production of Woodall's Campground Magazine. Join us for a new show each Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern on Facebook, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn for daily news and updates, and subscribe to our news feed on our website at woodallscm.com. Show hosts are Ben Quiggle and Mike Gast. Executive producers Rick Kessler and Alex Burkett. Copyright 2022, G&G Media Group.